Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Jackie Ives, your host for Make 'em Fall Madly in Love Summit. And today we have a very special guest speaker that I'm going to be introducing you because she's part of a panel of 21 experts who are helping you to discover how to attract love, keep it real, and make it last forever. And so we have the exquisite Elayne Kalila Doughty with us today. Elayne, welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm so delighted to be here with you. Yay.
Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful summit. You're bringing something very special, and I just truly appreciate you gracing us with your presence.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be communing with you all and to share this journey that we're going to be on in this next little bit of time together. It's really precious to me, so yeah.
Great. And so before we dive into the interview, I would love to share with the audience a little bit more about you. And so you have been on the path of passionate service for the past 20 years. You're inspiring women around the world to unleash their leadership gifts and step into their full potential. You're a psychotherapist, a spiritual activist, a best-selling author, speaker, soul midwife, and ordained priestess. Wow, that's incredible. And you're also the founder of the Queens of Transformation, Powerful Women Changing the World, and you're currently working on your next book, Priestess on Purpose, Women in Passionate Service to Healing the Heart of the World. That's so beautiful. And I know you've done so much more grassroots projects to improve the lives of women, children, and young adults. And I can go on and on. You have a very huge planetary offering that you're making right now. And so it's an honor and a privilege to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. It's always delightful to be introduced by someone else and to be celebrated in that way, and also to laugh at all of the things that we get up to in the world that we don't even register. So I'm really honored and humbled to be here and to be of service in this way. So yeah.
So I'm excited about the interview and the topic, Awakening Aphrodite, the Path of Beauty and Self-Love. I think that's incredible, and I'm just excited about hearing all about the path of beauty of self-love and awakening Aphrodite.
You know, when you connected with me and you asked me if I was interested to come on this seminar, it was interesting because we had a conversation, right? And as I was sitting in my car, I remember, and I just got this really clear message. I was like, oh, you want to talk about falling madly in love with someone else? Well, where that begins for me is falling madly in love with me. And where that really begins for me in my tradition is I work a lot with the archetypes of the divine feminine and that pantheon of the feminine face of God. And one of the temples that I hold very dear to my own heart, and I'm wearing the pink today, is the Temple of Aphrodite, the Temple of the Goddess of Love. And Aphrodite is one face of the Goddess of Love. There are many, many faces in every culture across the planet. There is some archetype that depicts this sense of deep unconditional love that starts within the self, that depicts great beauty, that is about sensuality, about being deeply, deeply embodied in this incredible physical temple that we get to walk in on the planet. And in the Greek-Roman tradition, it's Aphrodite or Venus, and most of us have heard of that. In the Hindu tradition, she shows up as Lakshmi, or a beautiful goddess that I've been getting to know over the last few years called Lalita. You just even say that name, Lalita, right? Yes. Who is the goddess of bliss. I mean, how perfect is that? And what I've learned, Jackie, over the years of working with these archetypes and what I call a direct embodiment path of the divine feminine. So what that means is awakening these archetypes as they live within me, as they would live within you and live within all of us, men and women, right? Okay. Awakening those archetypes is a pathway to accessing not just self-love, but accessing a deep sense of what it means to walk as love, to walk as beauty, to have that be a foundation from where you're living from as you live your life. And so when you asked me to come on, I was like, I would love to bring Aphrodite to you, because Aphrodite is really the archetype that teaches us how to become awakened in our sensual body, not just our sexual body, which is, you know, one aspect of our sensuality, but our sensual body in terms of how we experience life. How do we nourish ourselves through beauty? How do we nourish ourselves through our connections to our sisters? How do we nourish ourselves through our connections to water, the plants and the trees and the flowers and the animals and the whole environment? How do we, if you like, get into a relationship and intimacy that can actually fuel and nourish and deepen that sense of love within us? So that's where I want to begin.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought up in the beginning when I did share the theme of the summit, Make Him Fall Madly in Love. The truth is, we all know, at least I'd like to introduce the idea that we can't make anyone fall in love with us. It begins within. And I know this is something that you are an expert on, and so I'm just really excited about just you sharing more about how that all works, and so that the audience can really understand it does start with us and Aphrodite and all these qualities you're talking about.
So what you're saying, Jackie, is really true. What Aphrodite has to teach us and have us remember, it's not really even a teaching, it's more of a remembrance, because what I want you to get, everyone who's here with us, is that these archetypes live within every single one of us. And I just said that, but I want to elucidate what I mean when I say that. What I really mean is that these energies, these larger-than-life energies that we may attribute and see outside of ourselves. So when we look out into the world, we may see women and men who hold Aphrodite qualities. So a classic Aphrodite quality would be the movie star Marilyn Monroe, for example, or Scarlett Johansson, right? These very voluptuous, kind of sensual women. Okay, and we look out into the world and we see them and we say, well, they've got it, but I don't, right? We do this comparison thing, right? And we do this idea that somehow someone else has the beauty or has the love or has the way, the magic way to get everything they want, and we don't. And I want to let you into a secret here, which is when you turn the mirror around and you begin to look at self, you begin to appreciate who's here, who's actually here, and start to see yourself through the eyes of love, through the eyes of beauty, and stop looking out there to compare yourself to other people, to what they have or don't have or whatever it is, there's something profound that happens. And what happens is you start to awaken something within yourself. And when you awaken that within yourself, you start to build a relationship to that energy that lives within you that is sensual, that it desires deep, intimate connection, that is vulnerable, that is willing to show up and not be perfect in her idea of what beauty should look like, but is instead willing to show up in the beauty of who she actually is. Now, I want to tell you a little story here, because one of the reasons that I'm so devoted, or I should say I'm a devotee of Aphrodite's. I hold a temple to Aphrodite, and sitting here, I'll show you, with my beautiful rose that I just picked from the backyard, because I wanted to bring Aphrodite in here with me. So, oh, she's so divine.
It's fun that you have that, because I have
you have yours there. Yay! Aww.
Because I love rose oil and I love beauty, and so you're singing my song.
Exactly. So, you know, this is the thing. When I was thinking about what's a way of us entering into this archetype of Aphrodite, I want to share a little story with you, because as a kid growing up, for me, I grew up in a very small village in England, and I was the only red-headed girl in the village. And you probably can't see now, but I was bright redhead when I was young. I also happen to be very tall and very gangly. I've got these enormous long arms. I had no idea how to be in my body. I also grew up without a mom. So I didn't have my mother in my life, okay? So my imprint of femininity was also missing. But what I want you to hear about this is I have this idea, this version of myself, which was the ugly duckling story, right? And I'm wondering how many of the women who are watching this, or men who are watching this, grew up with a story around being an ugly duckling. In other words, saw yourself as not fitting in, saw yourself as anything other than desirable, right? I was just totally couldn't understand how to move my body, how to live in this female body, how to feel at ease with myself. Well, you all know the story of the ugly duckling, right? These ugly ducklings moving around, seeing themselves as ugly, and then one day comes upon a whole group of swans and is so jealous and so envious and so mad because it said, I want to be a swan, I want to be a swan. And then catches its reflection in the water and sees a swan and doesn't recognize herself, right? She doesn't recognize that that's who she is.
I love the metaphor.
right? So Aphrodite is about recognizing the swan within, that we are that love, that we are that beauty, and that any act of comparison is severing us from that true sense of love. So when you think about wanting to bring love into your life, wanting to be in relationship intimately with another, this is the question I have for you, and it's Aphrodite's question. Are you willing to show up in the beauty that you are? Are you willing to get radical in becoming the beauty that you already are? In other words, are you willing to unmask and quit hiding and allow Aphrodite in her bloom, in her beauty, to show up through you? Beauty is not something we can buy. Love is not something we can buy. It's not a commodity, right? It's an experience. It's a feeling. And when we say we want to attract love into our lives, what I say is, you already have love. You need to remember it. It's right here. And the beauty you would ascribe to those out there, and all the things that we try to buy in order to make ourselves more attractive, or we try to, change about ourselves, thinking that that's what we need to do in order to attract love. Aphrodite comes and says, "Psst, sweetheart, look in the mirror." But no, really look. Beyond the visage of this face, look into the eyes. So this is an exercise that I want to give everybody to do after they get off this call today with us, is I want you to go to a mirror, and I want you to look in that mirror, and I want you to see what you see. The first thing I guarantee most of us see is what we don't like. The first thing we'll see is what we don't like. For me, it's always been my nose and my wrinkles. Hey, what you gonna do, right? Here it is. We are trained ourselves over years and years to look at what we don't like, right? And the result of that is the messaging that we then give to ourselves, Jackie, and you know this, we all know this. We obsess about the things that we don't like. And then, guess what? The whole world gets to see us through that lensing, because that's how we're moving in the world. So this is my challenge to you. It's Aphrodite's challenge, really, is when you look in the mirror and you see what you don't like, let it go. Take a deep, deep breath in, and then let yourself actually look directly into your own eyes. And for some of us, this is really challenging, but I'm going to ask that you stay looking in your own eyes for at least a minute, and a minute can feel like eternity. And I want you to see who you see there. Beyond the face, beyond what we look like, who's actually in there? Because that's who's falling in love with you. That's who's going to fall in love with the other. That's who the other is going to fall in love with. It's no one else. So if you're not willing to get intimate with you, how can you ask someone else to? How can you open the door to anyone else?
Wonderful technique, the mirror technique. I love it. So would you hold the mirror right up to your eyes?
You can use one right up to your eyes, or you can just even use the bathroom mirror. I mean, I always love the PhD version of this, which is what I work with many women on when I work more individually or in groups, is to get naked and do that. To stand in a full-length mirror, get naked, and really look at how do you talk to yourself about who you are. Because Aphrodite, when she wakes up within us, is bringing that blush of love to every part of our being, inside and out. But most of us are so obsessed with what we look like because we believe that's what someone's falling in love with, right? I mean, we can't help it. We can't help it. But what I want you to get is this, is that what's really happening when you break down the barriers to intimacy with yourself and start to look at where you're unkind, or where you say cruel stuff, or whatever it is you're doing with yourself, and instead awaken love, then your whole orientation about how you feel about you changes. When you talk about having someone fall madly in love with you, how on earth can anyone fall madly in love with you if you can't fall madly in love with you? If you're over here going, oh, I wish this or I wish that, it's not going to happen in the way that it's going to be honest and real. And that's what I believe you're really talking about, right, with this whole series. What is real love?
And self-acceptance is what I hear you speaking loud and clear, is just accepting myself for as is and just loving all those parts of me unconditionally.
Right. Unconditional love. And that is the secret effort of Aphrodite, is loving yourself unconditionally. And, it's really funny because I know when I first started my healing journey, it was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, and I had a lot of wounds around my physical appearance. I had a lot of wounds around not feeling attractive, not feeling desired. I had a history of anorexia. I had a history of being really mean to my body, of not loving myself. And I know for many of us as women, it's a real journey. And I can remember, I don't know if it was a therapist or some kind of mentor speaking about loving yourself. And at the time, I had no concept of what that even meant. Like, what the frick does it mean to love yourself? I mean, really? It's like, it sounds so cliche, right? I'm going to love myself, love myself. Oh, I'm really loving myself. Well, it takes a really long time, in my experience, to develop a truly intimate, loving relationship with the self. But what most of us want to do is we want to try to bypass that and have someone else love us instead, because that we think is easier, right? It's easier to have someone else love you, only when that someone else goes away or that someone else isn't happy with us, then what happens, right? We don't feel loved anymore and we can't access it. So over many difficult relationships in my own life, after many experiments with this particular wounding, I realized when I started to work with this archetype of Aphrodite that the real answer to me creating love in my life was for me to create the love here, and to look at the wounding of the way in which I talked to myself, where I thought I wasn't good enough, where I thought I wasn't lovable enough, and to deal with that first. And it's an ongoing journey, right? It's not like we're ever done with it, Jackie. It's not like, oh, I'm healed and I'm so great. And no, I'm still working on that. As I age, as I get older, I look in the mirror and I go, wow, okay, this is what 45 looks like. What is 55? What is 65? There's a constant journey of self-acceptance. But that's really awakening the lover within. And Aphrodite is the inner lover. She wants to love us.
Do you feel that, and I love what you talked about your journey and just discovering that, just how to love yourself unconditionally. And I had a similar experience.
Right.
Mine was very external. I thought, because society's conditioning, and I just thought the way it was, but to just develop everything outside of myself, and then I would be good enough to be loved, and I could find love in my life based on those external things. And I ended up feeling very empty, and I didn't know how to connect. I thought I made that connection, but it was superficial, and it saddened me to realize that I didn't really know who I really was. And then that's how the process began for me, until I discovered that was so much more than what was on the outside. It's what an awakening to have that experience with yourself. That's truly falling in love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So part of this, and this is another invitation, is for anyone who's in that struggle of what does it really mean to love myself. And this is the thing. I mean, I know from me what I did when I first heard those words, right? The path of self-love. There was a part of me that kind of wrote it off as, oh, that's just pop psychology. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really make a difference, right? And what you can do all these rituals of self-love, and it's not going to make any difference. And this is what I learned, right? So one of the rituals of self-love that I prescribe from the goddess Aphrodite often is when you're in the shower in the morning, to take a few moments, and it can be literally a couple of minutes, as you are washing your body, to make that into a ritual of adoration. And what I mean by that is, rather than just perfunctorily moving across your body and getting your bits clean, or waking yourself up, is to actually anoint your body with your own hands. And specifically the areas that you have had self-loathing toward, or that have been broken in your opinion, or aren't beautiful, or aren't loving. Let your hands become Aphrodite's hands, and to actually allow yourself to touch your body with those hands of love as a healing, as a ritual of self-love. Now, the inside mystery of this process that makes it actually work is you can't just do it without bringing your mindfulness and your consciousness and your intention into your hands. You can't pretend to love yourself. Because guess what? Your inner self knows that bullshit. She will not buy it. She knows it's just another panacea. It doesn't make any sense, right? You have to actually, and this is where most of us get stuck, you have to actually bring love into your hands. And that means facing the part of you that's married to, attached to, not loving yourself. And that sometimes can be a little bit painful because we actually have to come face to face with the parts that aren't loving ourselves. But how can we possibly be in the shower with our beloved, which is probably what most of us would love to, right? And be bathed by them with the hands of the beloved if we won't even do it with ourselves? And you know, when I talk to women about their fantasies of what they want to happen with their beloved, most of us are looking for sensuality, we're looking for intimacy, we're looking for connection, we're looking to be adored as the goddess, to be praised at the altar of our goddessdom, right? And yet, that has to start with us. Because if we're not willing to welcome Aphrodite into our shower, into our beds, into our lingerie drawer, how can we invite the beloved in the other to come with us? So that's another little ritual for you to take away with you. And this one's profound. So I want you to get that it's where you put your intention that creates healing. That's what awakens Aphrodite in with us. It's the intention. So it's very simple. It's not that easy. It takes practice to do that. So my wish for us all is that we can remember that she lives within us and take the time, precious time, to create the ritual where she can actually enter in, where we can hear her, where we can experience her.
That's so beautiful, and I love that you said the word, just bring your awareness to be conscious of this ritual, this anointing that you can do to really connect with yourself and activate Aphrodite. That's just beautiful. Words of wisdom from you. So tell me, you have this lovely free gift that's going to support and deepen your practice of awakening Aphrodite, and I'm just dying to hear about it and share it with the audience. And so tell us a little bit more about that.
So, okay, so what I'm sharing with you all is there is a couple different things. One is an awakening the heart meditation that really focuses on bringing your energy into the heart and cultivating that place in your own heart where you can soften, where you can actually invite in this sense of this rose, this opening rose within your own heart, right? And entering what I call the temple of Aphrodite. So there's a temple that lives within you. Many of us aren't aware of it, but it's the temple of your own being. And the first step into activating Aphrodite in yourself is actually locating this temple. And Aphrodite's temple lives in this amazing body. So that's the first one. It's called Awakening the Temple of Your Heart. And then the next one is really meeting with Aphrodite as she shows up to you. Who is this part of you who is the sensualist? Who is this part of you who wishes to take pleasure in all aspects of life and wishes to heal anything less than love in you? That's really it. Who is she? And how does she show up to you? How does she let you know that she's here? Because every single one of us have this aspect, but how do we get to meet her? So there's another meditation around that. And then the third one is what I call a transmission. It's like a love poem from Aphrodite to you, so that you can listen to her basically loving you and entering into your awareness, talking to you as the beloved. Beloved, beloved one, I wish to come and kneel at your temple, kiss your hands and your feet, and scatter rose petals across your body. I wish to revere you as the beauty that you are. I wish you to see that in yourself. I wish you to allow the beloved that you wish in your life to see that in you, to risk being seen in your tender vulnerability, in your love, in your exquisite, natural being of beauty. And so those are the three gifts that I want to share with you as a way into this energy of Aphrodite, and just for you all to know that that is a real living possibility. It's not just something I made up. This archetypal energy is real. and the embodied practice of awakening it changes everything about how you see yourself and how you see the other. So.
Thank you so much. How lovely. It's really three gifts in one. I'm just really thrilled about the meditations and the beautiful poem, and just you're so exquisite, and you really exemplify Aphrodite. You are that. You are the love that you're sharing with us, and thank you so much for the work that you've done to help all of us just come into that place of remembering, as you said, our Aphrodite, and just knowing that we can tap into it through these steps that you shared. And I'm very grateful that you chose to be a part of the summit. This is information that we need to get out.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Jackie. Thank you for taking this on and for being willing to, I know what it takes to organize and to be the one who is holding the space and creating the energy and all the rest of it. So thank you for creating the opportunity for all of us to come together. It's beautiful.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure. I've been blessed by so many wonderful people, and I feel that it's a gift to me. And speaking of gifts, I just wanted to let the audience know that they can find the link to the free gift on the email that they got when they signed up for the summit. So they can go back into your email, and you'll find that link there for Elayne's free gift. And thanks again for being here. I'm going to keep following you and watching the work that you're doing. It's blessings.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I just want to invite all of us to leave the call today and to attend. And this is the invitation from Aphrodite that I'm just getting, is to really walk seeing through the eyes of love. So walk as love, not looking for love, but walking as love, and make that shift in your awareness. And I really, really believe that will shift how you see the beloved.
Okay, I love it. Walk as love. Instead of looking for love, just walk as love. That's a beautiful closing. And thank you all for joining us. Elayne Kalila Doughty. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.